Life Reflection, Chapter 16, My Early 20s. So this reflection is primarily going to be around events and highlights and just overall some memories from my early 20s. And early 20s does encompass college a little bit. For me, I graduated when I was 21 years old from undergraduate college. That's because my birthday is in May and I graduated 1 year early. So actually, technically I graduated when I was 20 years old from undergrad college, but 1 month later, I became 21, so not much of a difference. Either way, that's when my early 20s began, and I was taking my gap year, as I said. This was like in the first episode. Me and my first grade friend were just doing a lot of things together. He actually moved in when we did some of our project stuff together. Ironically, though, after it ended and we weren't working together anymore, he was still living here. And I don't know, at times it was a little bit awkward since overall for him, he's a bit of a not super sociable, I suppose. He's sociable with family, but not necessarily with everyone, I guess. But, he's kind of one of my closest friends, even though these days we don't talk as much. He definitely was one of my closest friends, is one of my closest friends of all time. So for me, I generally did not mind that we didn't like talk all the time, even though we were under the same roof and everything like that. But yeah, around that time, I also did like the part-time work that I mentioned involving like programming. And yeah, that was overall, it was a good experience, I'd say. Now for other work, I just do more freelance and content management for a website. Things more related to content creation, basically. But in my early 20s, it was mostly actually programming stuff in Excel using VBA and automating certain document filling processes and stuff like that. Very interesting. I didn't have like any guidelines. I kind of just did everything on my own, created everything on my own, and had fun with it. I learned a lot just researching and creating different functions in Excel, basically, that you can do based off of data and other files and everything. I even created like a button just for fun at some point to delete everything in the document. And I figured out how to like basically erase everything from the computer as well using the code. So you can do some pretty dangerous things if you know how to program, even if it's just like in an Excel thing. But obviously, this is like PC stuff. I'm sure it's much more difficult in different operating systems like Apple, like Mac OS and all that stuff. But yeah, remembering those times, I did very much enjoy just like learning and experimenting and everything like that. It was definitely fun. And I feel like during that time period, me, my first grade friend, and my best friend from high school, the one that I tried to do the Dreamlet stuff with, the YouTube stuff, we would hang out very, very frequently. And with my cousin, we would just hang out, talk, play a lot of Magic the Gathering, play a lot of board games like Betrayal, have a lot of like board game nights in general. I hosted a lot of those where we would play stuff like Avalon, Scythe, One Night Werewolf, Sequence on occasion. That one's a pretty basic game, but I suppose it can be fun sometimes. Catan. I don't know why I said it like that. Catan. There's also a really cool game called Shadowhunters that we sometimes played. It was a recommendation from someone at Game House in Pasadena. I don't know if that place still exists, but it was like a board game cafe. We used to play a lot of Liar's Dice. I mentioned that before as well. The game from Pirates of the Caribbean, but like with slightly altered rules. Monopoly Deal was a big one. We liked playing Codenames and Taboo. All sorts of games, basically. And we had a lot of fun with it. For sure, like Magic and actually Yu-Gi-Oh! Before that, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a big thing. And then Magic sort of just took over and we just played a lot of Commander style stuff. It was really big. We spent a lot of time doing that, I'd say. And me and my first grade friend also played a lot of card games together all the time. It was sort of like one of our pastimes to just play and talk and sometimes occasionally put something on the TV. Those were really, really good times, honestly. I do miss them. Like I do feel like now that I'm in my late 20s, like early 20s was definitely a different feel. Like People were out of college looking for jobs, either that or in a master's program. But still, a lot of the friends around me were people who were graduated and looking for jobs and stuff. And even then, for master's programs, it didn't last that long. It was just like, for most people, it was like 2 years, I'd say. So after that, it was the job search, and then people are generally freer around that time. So a lot of people could hang out. And that's sort of what happened, actually. So after a bit, like a year, I guess, a year or two, because I graduated early. After that time period, people started to hang out again, especially from high school, since like that's sort of the area that I'm close to. So I can see people from high school very easily if they're back from wherever they were when they were in college. There was this actually there was like a Halloween party that one of my friends hosted. I didn't actually know her very well, but we eventually became good friends because we started doing the YouTube stuff together on my other channel, but the entertainment channel basically. But that Halloween party was pretty pivotal, I'd say. It's where a lot of us got to see each other again. And thanks to that, like meeting up with friends that I knew in high school, some friends I didn't even know that well in high school, but it was just some of the friends that we knew of, occasionally talked to, and some good ones as well. But reuniting allowed us to just connect again, sort of talk about like what happened in college and exchange contacts and start hanging out again. So that's what happened. And interestingly, like thanks to that, I got close to a good amount of people from high school again. Some people that I wasn't close to before, like I said. Like I actually think a lot of people I feel really close to right now from high school, I wasn't necessarily close to back then. Although there are obviously some that were. So, but I feel like I made a lot of good friends that way. Just us hanging out a lot after college finished. Yeah, so that was a really, really pivotal event, I'd say. And then just being invited afterwards to things, like a lot of things. I'd say after that Halloween party, it was just a lot of hangouts after hangouts after hangouts. Pretty much average like 3 times a week, which is a good amount, I'd say, considering, you know, people work and stuff. I had work and I was also doing my YouTube stuff. It was definitely a phase where people wanted to hang out and wanted to socialize because, you know, we came from that college life where we were near the school, we had interactions with people all the time. But after getting back to the house, it's like you have to actually actively try for it if you want to socialize with people. And I'm speaking from a place where after my Japan adventure, I've been home and I've sort of been a little bit of a recluse, not too much. I still go out maybe like an average of twice a week. So it isn't that much less, but I mean, if you think about it, it's like 4 times, not 4 times, but like 4 less hangouts in a month, right? Because there's about 4 weeks and I used to average maybe 3 a week. So 4 less hangouts, it's kind of a good amount, I feel. And I'd say I'm not including like lesser things where I just hang out with friends for a meal or like, for instance, they come over to play a board game. Like, I don't really count those as hangouts. If I were to, I'd say I interacted with people like maybe an average of 4 to 5 times a week back then in my early 20s, compared to now where it's legit like about 2 times a week. But before my Japan trip though, I guess this is going into late 20s, there were definitely a lot of events. We'll talk about them later, but for now, yeah, early 20s, catching up with friends, reuniting, becoming close, forming new bonds, and just, yeah, overall enjoying some new experiences with them. There weren't too many like crazy ones. I guess there was one in Vegas that was kind of notable. It was with a friend and we, I don't know, I mean, I don't want to like say all the details, but basically what happened was this friend and I felt very connected and we basically were very happy to be good friends. And at a certain point in Vegas, we just were sleeping on the same bed because that was just the way it was arranged, since we were sharing the room with a lot of people. And I guess like we ended up like hugging each other while on the bed, but it wasn't like anything like romantic. It was just closeness, I suppose. And yeah, I remember feeling very happy about it, just having someone that's very connected. And, we were both single and stuff like that, but we talked about it and we were like, we're not really interested in each other romantically. It's just like a comfortability, closeness type of thing. And it was the first time I sort of like believed in something like that. And I know most people, a lot of my friends that I told, they didn't believe me when I said that I feel like it's fully platonic. But that's how people think. It's just sort of the tradition. It's sort of how people view that sort of physical closeness, I suppose. But yeah, there was a point where like there was a debate at a certain point, I guess. Not a debate, an argument. Not really an argument. It's more like one of our friends, our mutual friends, put the idea that, I guess she lied and said that I had romantic interest in her because I told her, but I did not. And like, it's just not something I did. And that ended up pushing her away. But that was, I don't know. A part of me was like wondering why that happened. I was pretty sad because I was like, I just got a new friend. Well, not necessarily a new friend, but like I really connected with a friend in a new way that allowed me to like feel free and understood. Like we just felt like we really understood each other. And that was the irony, right? There was clearly a misunderstanding at a certain point. And I was hoping that we would be able to talk it out, but I guess she just didn't want to do that. So we ended up not really talking at all for a while. But eventually she did apologize for it and found out that her friend is an oddly pathological liar. So there was some weird stuff in that story for sure. But I'm trying to leave out a lot of the details because I do feel like it's something that's quite personal. And yeah, I was very, very, very sad about it. I was definitely crying at times for sure. Just because like it really, really did feel like I finally had someone who understood me, who got me, and who I could talk to, and where I felt like I had a new best friend almost. It was after the time my ex-girlfriend completely stopped talking to me, just messaged me saying like, oh, we can't talk anymore. We like, she still cares about me and all that stuff. But she's got to go. She has a boyfriend. Can't do that. And I was sad about that. Probably way more sad than I'm making it out to be, but for sure I cried. And I was just like, she was someone I talked to all the time. So after that happened, I did feel like a void in my life. And having met this new friend for that connection and making that new connection, it was really, really like valuable to me. It was very special. And I just felt really, really, really sad after that happened, especially since it's like a miscommunication. I just feel like it was so easily resolved had we just talked about it. But I guess sometimes that's just how people are. They don't necessarily want to come to the table and talk just because they have made up their own mind about certain things. But either way, after she apologized, we became good friends again. But it wasn't the same as it was originally, and it never quite became the same, which is okay. People change. People don't necessarily always mean what they say in the long term. They say something, they feel something, and it's true for that moment, for that time period. But after a year or two, people's feelings can change quite a lot, is what I learned. But for me, I do feel like I continue to feel at least some form of care and love as strongly as I once did, if I ever did. It's that saying that I had before, that I will love those who no longer love me. And it's also part of what made me feel like that I was abandoned again. I think that's why I was so struck by it and so sad. It's because it was like my dad again, and then my girlfriend, like moving, my friends, and then my new connection with this friend just being like abandoned, not being heard, not being able to like connect anymore because they've just decided to cut you off. I would say that was one of the most emotional I got in my early 20s. That was around the time I was 23, right in the middle of my early 20s. But after that, the friends that I the other friends that I connected with, I slowly became closer and closer with them over time. And we shared a lot of memories together. I think one of them was like, we booked an Airbnb at Venice Beach, and I was the one who booked it. It was the first time I ever booked an Airbnb. And the first time I booked it, we got a noise complaint. So the person messaged me, and those fees can be pretty high. Luckily, they just gave a warning. And it was because the friends were just drinking way too much. Certain ones, not all of them. But, for me, I'm not someone who drinks. Because of my father, because of the promise, the vow that I made with my sister, the promise where, I just wouldn't drink because of the way our father was when he drank, how he was abusive and everything and drunk all the time. So, I kept it. I still have kept it. I still have not drank alcohol whatsoever in my life, at least not willingly. I don't think I have accidentally. I remember eating something with alcohol in it, like a cake, but I was like, it's fine. It's very, very little. And the rule is to just not drink. Like that is what my dad did all the time. So anyways, yeah, I just told them like, please be responsible. Like don't drink too much. Don't drink past your limit. Like please don't throw up, all that stuff. And people threw up. And one of them, this was with one of my close friends, and it was her boyfriend, and this is an ex-boyfriend now, so it doesn't matter if I sort of talk about him a little bit, but he drank way too much, and he kept on egging on like someone else to drink too much too, and they both ended up throwing up. One of them was responsible enough to throw up in the toilet, thank goodness, and then the other one threw up all over the bed sheets, made it smell terrible. And the next morning he was hungover and still drunk. And while moving stuff, he fell down the stairs and just broke the wall, like made a hole, like a big ass hole in the wall, like a size bigger than his head. And basically he slammed his shoulder into the wall because he lost balance. And when the person contacted me about it, I was like, no way, that's us, because this was something that happened like outside of the Airbnb room. It was like the complex. And I asked everyone, I was like, does anyone know about this? And no one spoke up. No one said anything. But like a little bit later, he was like, I think it might have been me. And he didn't even know. He was hesitant about it. But I told the Airbnb owner, like, okay, one of our people actually said that they might have done it. And then for me, I was like freaking out, and I was just like, why is this happening? Like the first time booking it, like guaranteed there's going to be fees for this, there's going to be consequences, and I'm the one, my name's on the paper. So there's a possibility that I'm going to have to be the one to somehow resolve this. But luckily, he manned up and got her contact and settled it. I don't know what happened afterwards, but I'm just glad that I did not have to deal with it from there, because I was just like stressed the entire time. And then the bed sheets also smelled because they did not wash it. I don't get why they didn't do that. Like I think they tried to at a certain point, like they were going to, but they just forgot to. Like there was so much irresponsible shit that happened. And yeah, for me, I just really don't like people who do that, like who can't just be responsible, understand their limits. And yeah, I mean, like I get it. Sometimes it happens, but at the very least, like, I don't know, at least pick up after yourself, like clean the bed sheets and like just tell someone else that you're not well enough to walk on your own because you're still drunk or hungover, and don't break walls. Like, I don't know, in my head, all of it is so simple, but I guess for some people it's like, I don't know. Talking about it makes me feel frustrated because of how stressed I felt. I remember that day too. We went to an escape room, a maze room, the Sky Odyssey one. It was very fun despite being stressed, and we passed it. And we also went to like a Korean spa. I didn't really do much there because, yeah. And a lot of my time other than work was spent, and other than hanging out with friends, was spent on YouTube, like I mentioned before. Just a lot of video creation and all that stuff. To be honest, I do feel like a part of me regrets not doing way more in my early 20s. Well, I also did gymnastics. Like gymnastics lessons was really, really fun. that was in my early 20s as well. So that's something I don't regret. I really love the fact that I enrolled in lessons and really went all out with that. There were also a few film projects that I was involved in, like short film stuff. There was one in Big Bear that I really, really enjoyed, and I was behind the scenes for that one. Just meeting friends and doing YouTube stuff. It was really, really fun. But I feel like I could have taken it another step. I think I spent way too much time on like just reading self-improvement books, like listening to them, consuming that content, creating content about it, and sort of not really doing anything with it, not doing anything worthwhile in terms of like the projects that I was engaged in. I always made videos about like those concepts and stuff, but like at a certain point, you're sort of making videos about concepts about how to be better, how to be more productive, how to improve, all that stuff. But like, you're not actually doing it. That's the issue. That's the primary issue with myself in the past. Like, had I engaged in real projects, like projects that would like earn me some money, or projects that would stretch my knowledge, gain me more experience, like start a real business, all that stuff, like there's so many things that I could have done better that I'm finally starting to do now. I just feel like I really should have done those things in my early 20s, like from the beginning. Yeah, the YouTube stuff is something, and I did create online courses and stuff, so that was something as well. But it wasn't like a solid, like, I don't know, I never went out of my comfort zone. I never like really tried to like research how to actually start a real business, maybe like a production company, or maybe like actually creating a product and selling it, you know? Like there's so many avenues that I could have researched and tried, but I was just so caught up in just making content about self-improvement that I wasn't actually really like following the steps from the books. I wasn't like actually creating a real product other than an information product, I guess. Like you can call online courses information products, but technically, yeah, it's a real product. It's like people sell online courses and make a lot of money as long as they're premium and all that stuff. That's what I'm planning on doing with my future programs, my future courses as well. But I don't know, I still like the idea of having created like a real product, like an app or like a physical product that you can actually use, or a board game, or like an audiobook or book in general. Just all that stuff that I have listed, but I never really engaged with in my early 20s. And honestly, I'm kind of running out of time to do it in my late 20s as well. So I get the feeling that my early 30s is going to be when I release and create a whole bunch of original, like real products, because that's the direction I'm heading towards right now. But, you know, we'll talk about that later. For now, that's just something I do regret about my early 20s. I just feel like I kind of didn't have like a full plan, you know, like a mentorship would have been very, very helpful, I think. Like someone who knew a lot more than me. And I think I gave too much focus on YouTube as well, and I wasn't even doing it to the best of my ability. Like I was definitely scattered about, and yeah. But that sort of highlights my early 20s, I'd say. I do remember another trip that was pretty memorable, my London trip. I went with my sister and her friend, and they had family there, so we stayed with them. And I met my sister's friend's family member, his cousin, and we got along really well. And it was just like a really, really fun 2 weeks, I'd say. Like I just like got to talk to him about so many different things, and it was just so fun, like seeing so many new places. The architecture in London was great. The weather at the time was good, and yeah, the countryside, beautiful. That one day that we walked in Paris as well to see the Eiffel Tower, and my sister's feet were bleeding because she was wearing uncomfortable shoes, and it's the first time I got Doc Martens because my sister and her friend kept saying my shoes looked ugly, so I got pressured into buying them. But I mean, they were kind of cool. I did kind of like them, so it wasn't that much pressure. It was more like a nudge. Although I don't wear them anymore. My Vessies are just too comfortable to like and they're so easy to put on and off. Like that's such a big thing, I feel, for shoes. Anyways, but yeah, that London trip, beautiful, like amazing. I do really, really love that. I think that was, other than, oh yeah, I actually went to Japan in 2017 as well. So that was with my college friends. So we all went to Japan and Korea together. And that was a really, really fun trip, actually. We traveled around a whole bunch. That's my first time ever in Japan. So it was, and oddly, I feel like I don't really remember too many things from it, but like I don't remember everything in clarity. I remember what we did, but like not like everything in clarity. Yeah, but I visited so many of the same places when I was there in this year. So it was really nice just sort of seeing it again and sort of remembering what I saw in the past. And yeah, just to summarize that trip, I think it was like 12 days in Japan and then 5 in Korea, something like that. I think it was like 3 weeks total, and around 3 week total. And the split was 2/3 Japan and then 1/3 in Korea. But by the time we reached Korea, we were super tired. So a lot of us just kind of chilled in the Airbnb and watched, I remember watching some Naruto while someone else was watching like Sword Art Online. It was kind of funny. And we ate a lot of food, takeout food, rode a lot of taxis. Luckily, one of my friends was Korean, so you could speak the language and everything. Bicycled around Han River. That was so nice. And that's the primary reason why I did it again this year when I visited Korea. Yeah. Fun memories, honestly, like really, really great memories to have traveled with the college friends. Like those 2 travel trips were very, very memorable. The Japan trip was my first time going out of the country as well. So yeah, right after college finished, and then a few years after that for the London one. And I remember actually a conversation I had with my friends saying like, oh yeah, travel, don't really care about it that much. It's really about the friends and I can have fun wherever I am, all that stuff. And now I'm like, geez, was I wrong? Like, was I so wrong? Like the place, the environment, everything, it really changes so much of like how you feel and what you're thinking about and everything. Like, and having gone to Japan, like basically alone and making a whole new set of friends, it's like, the people obviously do matter, like making new friends and making sure that your new friends are good people and people that you will retain a connection with, stuff like that, It does matter. The people matter, but it doesn't always have to be the same people. But yeah, a whole lot has changed, I'd say, from then. And I think we'll get into it in the next one, just like late 20s. But that's it for this one for early 20s.